Hey, it's Dr. Sebastian Gonzalez from Performance Play Sports Care again. Today I'm going to go over how the core functions, how you should be training it, and basically just kind of educating you about how to decrease the amount of high-risk core moves that you might be doing, and we're going to learn this all through education. So as I explain through, I really want you guys to think about, is that one exercise I'm doing at the gym actually productive for making the core function this way? Okay? So I have a few props with this. I have something I made. Actually, I brainstormed and thought, hey, this is going to be the best thing I ever made to show core, because the core function is basically like the spring. It likes to find its center. I got this, which is going to be helpful to show pelvic position, and I have this to show load. So we'll go through this. Let's figure out how we're going to line these things up. So right now we have a spine. We have the spine. We have the head. We have the head or the eyes. I'll be talking about the eyes in a second. And then we have, the sacrum, which is the triangular shaped bone at the base of the spine. So we call it the base of the spine. And then there's the pelvis. There's the hips in here too, which have not been included on this model. The pelvis is going to be, so again, we have spine, head or eyes, sacrum or the triangle shaped one. And then we have pelvis, and then the hips would be included on it. Okay, so here we go. So the function of the spine is actually to remain upright. Okay, so walking through everyday life, you're walking around, you're not slouching over, you're not extending backwards. You want to have good positioning. And we're not going to go too much into what are the proper, anterior, posterior, tilt, what is the proper degrees of the spine to curve in X, Y, and Z manner. It's not really that important because there's ranges in there. As long as you understand what the function of the core is, I think you'll decrease the amount of possibilities of hurting yourself in the gym. So the function of the core is to bring you back to center, and I'll show this in the GoPro here. So as I push, it wants to fight back. Push the other way, it wants to fight back. Every direction, including rotation, which is a little bit harder to see on this model, but everything wants to fight back to center. And the more functional of a core you have, the quicker it comes back, and also too, the less it deviates. Okay? If you can go really, really far, sure, you could be flexible, but are you in control of that? We have no idea. So this is why a lot of times dancers or people with high flexibility are actually at high risk for injuries of the back and other types of joints. You have to be able to have control over those extreme ranges of motion. So it finds its center, but it only remains upright if I have a nice flat base. Okay, and this is the sacrum. Now, we bring the pelvis in right here. The pelvis shows that it has control over the positioning of the sacrum. And I guess generally speaking, I won't say just only pelvis, we'll say the hips as well. This model is very rough, but for the most part, I think you guys will get the point. Now, they have control over how level this is based upon where it's positioned. It can be falling off the other side as well. But here's one thing you probably do see, is that if it's like this, the number one rule is you're always going to be looking out, the eyes always win. Okay? Aside from looking down, looking at your phone or stargazing, the eyes will always win. And because of this, you will not have the capacity to be upright from the sacrum to the head. So it's going to mess up all your curves and so on. And the front side of the spine, let's just say this is the belly area. Now it's going to be elongated. Everything in back is going to be compressed. The muscles are probably going to feel tight, and everything's going to be out of whack. Okay? It can also happen the other way. This person's flexed forward all the time now, and it's going to really put pressure on the disc and so on. I'll show this in the model here. So again, we have our extension one, which is going to compress all these little parts right here. And then we have our flexion one, which is going to smash these parts, which are like little jelly donuts. Okay? Now, a lot of these injuries happen not from one single incident, they happen from repetitive injury, a repetitive load upon an area. And even McGill has said this in one of his books or one of his manuals. I can't remember the one off the top of my head now. But we find that a lot of times it's not going to be just the hair the straw that broke the camel's back. It's all the other straws that has been loaded on there first, okay? So what we need to do is get the pelvis and hips below the sacrum. We need to get the sacrum so it's in a good position, and we need to give the core a fighting chance to do its job. Because again, the eyes are going to always win, but if we make the eyes already on plane with the rest of the world, then the possibility of fighting and finding that neutral point is much easier and much better, okay? So the way we would advance this further on is once you are, actually the way I usually train people first is I do it in components, okay? So first off, I let them figure out their center. And we might do this with exercises like the McGill Big 3, so isometric trunk stabilization, curl up, side bridge, bird dogs. There's lots of different types of ways to do this, but for the most part, you need to be able to find your center, because even if you do some of the best exercises poorly, it's not going to help you out at all. You need to be aware where your center is, and you need to be able to be aware of when you deviate away from it. Find proper position and stick it, okay? The body will move as, a lot of times like you put a dowel on someone's back when they're doing this stuff, and the dowel's slopping all over the place, and that doesn't help out at all. You got to make sure that you find your position, you stick it, and a lot of times I'll walk around when people are doing stuff in here, I just slap my stomach, and they should know right off, because I've coached them ahead of time, this is what I mean. There's no more explaining about what this center point is. You will not start your program unless you've figured out how to find this. Okay, second is we need to make sure we have control, strength, endurance, flexibility of the pelvis and hips and so on, or else we're going to be in this type of situation here. Okay? Next is when we find it, when we finally got all these pieces together and the trunk has its ability to hold its position, the pelvis and hips are doing their job, now we get into motions. We get into closed chain motions, which is going to be complex motions. Squatting, deadlifting or hip hinging, pushing and pulling will actually go to, carries, lunges. These are things that you're going to do throughout the day anyways. Deadlifting is like bending over to pick up a kid. Squatting down is like getting onto a toilet. Carrying is like carrying a bag of groceries up the steps to your house. Okay? These will challenge the core. One example is if I take, let's just say if I'm straight on like this with this spring and I have a heavy grocery bag this way, if you haven't trained your core effectively to hold a position, actually we'll do this camera. So I have our grocery bag here. Now this is going to start shredding spine up too. You should be able to have rigidity amongst the spine. And no matter how heavy the bag is, you should be able to find that center point. And I'm trained it to do so because we're training for life. Okay, now a lot of people want to do, not everyone wants to be a weightlifter. Not everyone wants to be an athlete, but they want to feel good in their everyday life. So after this, so first we got, just to recap, figure out how to find your center. That's isometric trunk stabilization. Second is get your hips and pelvis working. Okay? Third is go through motions to make sure that you still have your control. Next is you go through loaded motions. Now this is the part that scares a lot of people actually. Like why would I start lifting weights or carrying heavy objects around a gym or a rehab facility in the first place? Well, like I said, it's like you're training for life. And this right here is my example of compression versus shear. Okay, the spine is a bunch of columns. They're a bunch of columns stacked upon each other. The beauty of columns is that they're great at compression. Okay, I'm not putting a bunch of weight on these because these are paper cups. But for the most part, they take more compression than they do shear. They don't like shear because it'll fall right off. So I hope this was helpful to you guys. If you have more questions, feel free to contact me. Put questions below because I want this to be an open forum about what exercises you guys do. Are they okay to do? How do you do them? And also ask me questions for the podcast too. I love answering questions like this. So take care. Have a good day.